My name is PAA KUMI Frank. I happen to be the founding president of Passionate Africa Leadership Institute. Let me kindly take this opportunity to wish the life patron of Pali, Professor Joseph Ofori Dankwa, a wonderful congratulations to him for emerging as the most distinguished professor in the state of Michigan, USA. Professor Joseph Ofori Dankwa also happens to be the life patron of this great institution, Passionate Africa Leadership Institute. And for Pali, it's a joy, it's an honor, it's a privilege that we are associated with this man, very wonderful man. He is a top-notch professor of international business and management. His articles have been widely published and by renowned business journals around the globe. And for us, it's an honor that Professor Dankwa was adjudged the most distinguished professor of international business for the year 2020 in the state of Michigan. So the whole state of Michigan, he has been the most distinguished, professor for that very specific year. And to us, this is quite humbling. So, Prof. Dankwa, wherever you are, we dedicate the first edition of Pali TV series to you, and we say that God richly bless you for the wonderful work you are doing for the globe and for us to recognize that you are from Ghana and also raising the flag of this republic to a very high pedigree. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is the first edition of a series of Encounter, and I would like to also salute all persons that are associated with the Passionate Fraternity. What I mean by the Passionate Fraternity is that the Passionate Africa Leadership Institute is a very wonderful institution. It has several components. The Center for Transformational Leadership is one component that has Lady Alice as the lead. We have the Center for Governance and Civic Engagement as another center. We have the Reshape Africa Initiative as another center. So lots of people that are either associates, honorary associates, volunteers. I would like to just quickly acknowledge you, and I would just like to say a special evening to all of you out there. And then finally, to my wonderful audience, I would like to also warmly appreciate your effort and time. So I invite each one of us that are glued to our various social media handles, particularly or especially Facebook. Let's have a conversation on the ongoing global pandemic and what has come up to be known as COVID-19. And like as we all have been affected one way or the other, or as we can all be as we can all relate with the current happenings, because it has affected homes, it has affected churches, non-profits, charity organizations, governments across the globe, name it, even to the school kids and tertiary students, etc. So let's just have a conversation on COVID-19. And for me, as somebody who is inclined towards leadership and have an idea of an ideal leadership and governance situation, I would like to trigger a conversation from the leadership point of view, and would like to also take a journey to quickly interrogate the actions and inactions of leadership, be it political, faith leadership, corporate leadership, and even global leadership. But I will try to narrow the discussion probably, to the Ghanaian context. I have observed the few days that the U.S. President has had an issue with the WHO, and etc. I'm not too interested in going into that tangent of discussion. However, let's come back home. Picking conversations around, there are people that seek to suggest that, for instance, if the Ghanaian borders and the Ghanaian airspace had been shut in the initial stages of this case, probably Ghana would not have recorded a case at all. I will agree to some extent, but then I think that the whole argument may also not be too sustainable. Why am I saying that the whole argument might not be too sustainable? Is that as we speak now, there are indications of people who have been infected with COVID-19 in Ghana, and they have no trace of travel history. They have no trace of having come into contact with a confirmed positive patients. So what explains the community spread? Example, in the Begrof Fantiakwa North District Hospital, there's this farmer, a 65-year-old farmer, who went to the hospital, and his initial case was that he has a tuberculosis. It turned out to be COVID-19, and this old man, has not have any encounter with somebody who has been tested positive, and either that he has a travel history. So if we make the argument that if His Excellency had closed or shut the borders earlier, probably we would not have recorded any case at all. I think that tangent of argument cannot stand the test of time. Even though I also recognize that if we had been a bit proactive, probably our case number would not have shoot to that high level. Okay, our case number will not have shoot to that level. That I recognize. But I think that we are in the forefront of a war. This is a war not with guns, but a war that a virus, is threatening the survival of humanity. So, respectively or respectfully, I think this is also not the time to apportion or shift blame as to what this person should have done, or so posterity can judge the actions and inactions of leadership, and history will tell a story. However, we have a confrontation to deal with now, so let's focus on that and have all citizens cooperation, and have also the opinion of the public, experts, non-experts, as to what we can do to contain this virus and flush it out so that Ghana can return to normalcy. Having established this background, I would like to say that if the question arises of leadership response, how has leadership handled COVID-19 cases in Ghana so far? Like I alluded in the initial opening remarks, what will be the rating of leadership? And I always have fallen in love with a very wonderful definition of leadership that was defined by John Cutler. And this is what he says. He defined leadership as the development of vision and strategies, the alignment of individuals, in an alignment of individuals behind those strategies, the empowerment of individuals to make a vision happen or a project executed despite obstacles. And to me, where my beef rests most is where, despite obstacle, irrespective of challenges. So we all know that globally there was some kind of unpreparedness from the almighty White House to the Jubilee House of Ghana and other nations. We thought this was a Chinese case. We forgot for a moment that in a global context, globalization has made it such that when somebody coughs in Singapore, we in Accra are likely to react to the cough. And that's how globalization has emerged. And so I'm sure that the world will not make that mistake again, that when something starts in the corner of a country, the assumption will be that this is, let them mind their own business. So irrespective of that, what has the Ghanaian leadership done so far? And I would like to have a take on that. In terms of policy intervention so far, I think that the average or the objective Ghanaian will want to recognize the intervention of government. It has been so superb, from motivation to health professionals, frontliners, because I remember that Pali made a statement and was asking government to make sure that those who are in the front line of this fight do so with a very relaxed and comfortable mind. And little did we know that government was even also planning. So as we speak now, there's a policy that covers or give full assurance of a life insurance for the frontliners, health practitioners, and this needs applause. When we do well as a people, we have to congratulate ourselves, and that encourages or serves as encouragement for leadership to do more. Apart from that, we are also aware that health workers for the next 3 months would have a relaxation in their tax that they pay to government of Ghana. And this sort of motivation needs to be recognized and it needs to be applauded for. That is the angle I'm coming from. Because the assumption in organizational development is that in every situation, in every organization, in every faith-based institution, something works. In every organization, in every setting, something is challenged. So what is working as far as COVID-19 government of Ghana response is concerned? I'm saying that what is working is that our health workers have been motivated in terms of giving them personal protective equipment. We cannot score governments 100%. No, there are challenges. There are rare challenges with the PPEs, and that's we need to also add our voice that governments make sure that enough are procured, so that in the case, the instance that I gave at the Begro Government Hospital, for instance, if all the health workers had the personal protective equipment, probably the risk or the risk to them would have been a bit minimal in terms of they being affected. Because as we speak now, over 58 of staff of the Begro Government Hospital have been asked to go on mandatory quarantine, and we can only know after 14 days that when they are tested, then we can have ease whether they've been infected or not. So in terms of the PPEs, they might not be adequate as we speak now, and want to encourage governments and public spirited organizations to up their game on that. So in a holistic manner, the policy response, the leadership shown, the presidential speeches, which I want to call it presidential inspiration, has been received with touch. It has been applauded globally. And for all of us, it's not news that I have to rehash it. But I want to put it on record that government policy intervention has been superb. However, with implementation and execution, that is when there are also issues. So, example, government has said that through policy outline that every child is going to have, every vulnerable is going to have a hot meal. So we're looking at the Kayis, we're looking at people whose income is tied on daily receiving or had to do a daily routine, go and sell before they can make ends meet. So the policy of trying to cushion the very most vulnerable in our society is also laudable. But when it comes, or the implementation is also becoming problematic. And this is where Pali Center for Governance and Civic Engagement would like to draw President Akufo-Addo's attention, and for that matter, leadership attention, to the fact that the policy, the spirit and letter of the policy, or the original intention of the policy, is absolutely laudable. However, with the first 2 weeks of implementation, it has also exposed some policy gaps. What do I mean by exposed policy gaps? So, example, we have people who are receiving this meal, and some of them, the feedback that they are giving, either some of them seems to suggest that the quality of the food has been compromised, etc. So, and then there's also another knowledge, that is public knowledge, that a lot of people are put together in a crowd form, so they, in attempt for them to come and receive the hot meal per day. Can we quickly relook at this policy? So, for instance, can we begin to think through and say if it is possible to put this in a cash form, so that the networks, the telcos, will help government to do this, instead of giving it as a meal, and the meal that brings complications, the complications of defeating the purpose of social distancing, then also the feedback that some of the quality of the food has been compromised, etc. Can we begin to rethink and redirect the policy? So Pali is proposing that let's give it in a form of a weekly allowance. So if the meal is costing 20 Ghana per day, can we every week send that money in the form of mobile money, mobile funds, mobile transfers, so that people will not need to convey? I think there's something that government of Ghana must take a watch. Secondly, in terms of law enforcement, because what we all know is that after the presidential directives, it went through parliamentary process, and it is now an act of parliament. It is a law that has been gazetted in the Ghanaian constitutional jurisdiction of jurisprudence. Now, for me as a civil non-state actor, when I was reading and going through the laws, I was amazed that the representative of the Ghanaian people, that is the legislator, parliament, have enacted or accepted a law that seeks to either put people into prison for 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, maximum of 10 years, in case they are unable to pay a fine. I see this as an unacceptable situation. Just like His Excellency Nana Addo pointed out, The days are not normal. The times are not normal. I'm not saying that people must flout the laws of the republic. But how on earth can the people's representatives accept and pass a law that puts a fine of 12,000 Ghana cedis, between 12,000 Ghana cedis to 60 Ghana cedis, on people who default in payments? Now, when the president was speaking, he was categorical that there are exceptional cases. Apart from the essential health workers, there were exceptional cases. And this is not a total lockdown. Let me put it on record. This is a partial lockdown. So, by all means, you will see people with genuine needs going to the city center. Let's not assume that one or two people went out and they did not have a tangible reason to be out, and therefore everybody who is out there is also not obeying the law. This is my line of argument. Now, that if somebody is found fault of the law and the person, the police by discretion, because the police have a discretionary power to say, let me let you go, or let me let you let the law have its course. Now, if the police arrest you by the act of parliament or by the laws that has been passed by our August House, you are going to face the courts. You are going to face the court system, and the court system, the judge again is also going to use the constitutional provision backed by other judicial review processes to sentence you to some months and years of imprisonment. And I'm arguing from the point that how many Ghanaians can pay 12,000 Ghana cedis if found fault of the law? How many Ghanaians can pay 60 Ghana cedis if found fault of the law? Now, so what is going to happen is that eventually our prisons that we want to decongest would be seeing a high congestion, cases of high congestion. Why am I saying that? As we speak now, a pastor in Kumasi and 4 church workers have been sentenced to 4 years imprisonment for defying the ban on social gathering acts. I'm not in any way trying to endorse the lawlessness on the part of the priests and the church leaders. But what I'm saying as a social innovator is that could we have been more creative? Could we have done it more differently? Could we have, because it's always keeping people in prison, and we all know the state of our prisons already. And let me tell you that, and as we all know, once somebody goes into prison, again, the state of Ghana or the Republic is compelled to feed the person till. So what can we do differently? I find it very regrettable that our parliamentarians could not look at the bill initially to at least, because we compare ourselves to countries in the G7, the G20, the modern democracies, and those destinations and those countries, whatever their democracy is marching with what I call economic rights. There's massive deployment of economic rights. And even them, I know that for UK and some European countries, you could also be fined. But in UK, you're looking at £500, 500 euros, 1,000 euros, So how does the Ghanaian raise as much as 12,000 Ghana cedis, between 12,000 Ghana cedis and 60,000 Ghana cedis, to be able to pay in case you are caught by the law? So I'm saying in a nutshell that government has done a yeoman's job by number of interventions, number of policy initiatives to cushion the Ghanaian, discounts of energy in terms of electricity, holistic payments of electricity bill for the most vulnerable, free water for the next 3 months. I mean, this is amazing, and we have to applaud the Akufo-Addo-led administration. However, we also have to point out to the policymakers that, hey, there are gaps in whatever that you have done to cushion the Ghanaian people. There are also some gaps that, and especially with the Act of Parliament, the laws that seeking to give punishment to those who are found disobeying the law. I think that is very most insensitive that we have been confronted with. But as we speak now, it's a law, and so it will only take the president, who I think could exercise his prerogative power of mercy and to help. Then my last take, before if there are some questions that I can address, is that I would also like to point out to policy makers or leaders in health that beginning, as we all know, the data was suggesting, or the data suggested highly, that the Ghanaian situation in terms of data, much of people that the data captured with the COVID-19 cases were the foreign imported ones. However, the tables have turned massively. Now, as we speak now, data points to the fact that over 70% of the cases that we have registered or confirmed are now horizontal cases or community infection. So I want to quickly point out that in that scenario, then policy must quickly change and policy must quickly adapt. Because if, going by the argument, the initial data, that if the cases were highly imported cases, then your mechanism and strategies to curtail or contain the virus, differs. But now that the tables have turned and it's highly horizontal or community infection that has taken a giant lead in terms of numbers, means that we must go back to the drawing table again quickly and re-strategize as to see what is it that we can do in order to be able to control the virus. And even as we also do a policy shift, we must also be thinking about how to get the Ghanaian economy back on its for the Ghanaian economy to be back on its feet, because I know that if we continue to adapt to the policy of lockdown, then it's also it's not sustainable. I'm saying it's not sustainable because, just like His Excellency initially said in one of his speeches, that we cannot continue to import foreign initiatives to solve local local problems. So the fact that some of these developed countries has been on lockdown, Italy has been on lockdown, Spain has been on lockdown for a number of days and a number of weeks, does not mean that Ghana have to also be on lockdown for a long stretch of months. Because to the average Ghanaian taxpayer, let me remind each one of us that the free water, the free electricity that we are praising His Excellency and his government for giving us, would also come back to haunt us in terms of economy. Whosoever wins this year's election would definitely be passing on some of this to us in a form of tax. And as the Ghanaian external debt keep rocketing, it's generations that are yet unborn that will be confronted with the situation to pay. So I must also say quickly that as long as, or irrespective of the fact that we are happy and we are welcoming all the relief packages that are coming, we must also quickly bear in mind that it will come one day to also really hunt us. So the government should be thinking quickly on what to do to bring back the economy. I would suggest that by first week of May, we should be thinking about how to begin to open the country up in terms of economic direction. So and that could help a lot. Yeah. So I have some number of conversational topics that has also been thrown in, and I just want to spend some few minutes to address that, and then this edition would shut down this very live projection. So there's this question about how do I assess or evaluate this response from government in terms of COVID-19 assessment. Yeah. So like I initially said, the response has been awesome, but it has to be adaptive, because even the WHO itself, that we all know globally is the mouthpiece, is a globally acclaimed, reputable health apex global body on health. Initially, you could see that their communication kept on changing. There were instances that were told that COVID-19 was not an airborne disease. Then later, we were also told that it could be airborne. There are interesting developments that keep emerging. Example, there's even a suggestion that the virus could be transmitted by handling cash, or so there's the point that we have to try to be cashless as much as possible. So these are the issues that keep revolving. So in terms of assessing governments or rating government's response, I think so far so very, very good. But this is not also a time for complacency. Because I heard the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, trying to say that Ghana is ahead and even using strong countries. I think it's early days yet. Let's be very humble in some of these utterances, and let's keep praying and just hoping that the good Lord would continue to have mercy on this country, So and then there's the point about if I'm to also offer an opinion. If I'm also to offer an opinion as to what government must be doing differently, how do I go about that, or what will be my take. Now, I would strongly suggest that we have to give room for local treatment as well. We have to have a policy of open door. We should not always look abroad for vaccines. I have a sense of judgment that probably solution could be right in here. So government must embrace herbal treatment. Government must embrace local initiative in containing the virus. Who knows? Probably Ghana, or probably we may have a local solution. We may have a local solution already here. So I strongly suggest that government of Ghana must open his doors to embrace whoever have the solution. There should not be an instance of always waiting for the white people. And let me also use this opportunity to commend the Noguchi Center. I think they've done a yeoman's job. I recently read that they've done an initial assessment trying to sequence the virus, trying to get the characteristics of the virus and how the virus play to environmental change, and how sensitive or insensitive the virus plays at different jurisdictions. They were able to use 12 cases, a Norwegian, European, a Norwegian, Ghanaian, and then some other European countries to do the sampling. And I think we have to commend the Noguchi Institute for also being proactive. And for me, when I heard it, I was very proud to be a Ghanaian. So that's my opinion as to going forward. What is it that government of Ghana must be doing? Yeah. So on this very note, I must say that the Pali TV series, which have the technical director to be Passionate Hayford Daho, and my brother Divine, who did the graphics, and the wonderful Pali team, Royal Boss, whoever is watching, our audience, and thank you so much for granting us audience. And it's going to be a weekly series, and this is the first edition. It's our contribution to civic engagement in the Ghanaian discourse. So if you check the slogan of the Pali TV series, we are saying that it's time to reshape national discourse. So you have to applaud if there's a policy that is good, no matter your political orientation, you have to applaud. If there's a policy that is bad, no matter if your government is in power, you have to critique the government, and you don't have to be a rubber stamp Ghanaian that once it's your party, if they are wrong, it's right, and vice versa, and that is unacceptable. So that's the angle we are coming from, that let's change our national discourse, let's change our national conversation, and let's be embracing as much as as much as possible. Okay, so lastly, let me address this question: are we winning the fight, or are we losing the fight on COVID-19? My take is that it's a shared responsibility. Once leadership has done its part, but leadership is the the duty bearers, and we, the citizens, are the right holders. Just before I came online live, I read an incident in the Upper East region that a man who has tested positive for COVID-19 had run away, or is on his, or he's on the run. He's on the run, and there are scattered reports, scattered media reports of individuals that are supposed to be on mandatory quarantine, but are not too disciplined enough and are mingling with the larger society. So if you are tested positive and you do not cooperate with the Ghanaian authorities and you run into the larger society and community, then you are going to multiply the virus, and that will defeat the purpose of fighting this battle. And let nobody deceive himself or herself that this is Akufo-Addo's business or this is MPP government's business. Just like all the politicians have said that the virus does not know a political color. So the fact that the virus does not know a political color means that we all have to combat and fight this battle together. So if we can win the fight, or if we are winning or losing the fight on this COVID-19, then it's incumbent on us as citizens to be cooperative. Don't run away into the larger society if you are tested positive. Let's observe social distancing, etc. And I think that on that tangent we can, because the policies looks interesting. The policies looks very interesting, and as government and the experts continue to do quick review, we will be able to win the battle. I must also commend the Ministry of Information, led by the able Honorable Kwejo Nkrumah, the information sharing, the intersectorial coordination, the interministerial coordination has been awesome. And the president trying to bring all the nations together, meeting political leadership, to carry everybody along in this fight is also quite commendable. So that is what I will say in terms of are we winning or we are losing, the battle. So thank you so very much for being part of the first edition of the Pali TV series. And I must say that a big thank you to Passionate Hayford, Technical Director, Pali TV. A big thank you to Divine for doing the graphics. A big thank you to Lady Kumi for all the support and all that. Royal Boss, thank you so much. And let's again congratulate Professor Joseph Ofori Dankwa, the life patron of Pali, for emerging as the 2020 Most Distinguished Professor Award, the state of Michigan. Thank you, Prof, for being an inspiration. Thank you for making Ghana so proud. And everybody who watched, everybody who followed, God richly bless you. I am PAA KUMI Frank, founding president, Pali, Ghana. Thank you. And so let's remember to keep all the health protocols. Let's wash our hands constantly. If you come to the Pali space here, we have sanitizer, hand sanitizer, sorry. And I saw Hayford doing that in almost every 10-20 minutes. He used the hand sanitizer. And so let's be washing our hands. Ghana needs each one of us, and let's be staying safe. So thank you so much. Evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen.